Good. So, Juha said in his presentation that nobody knows what the services for smart city looks like. And that is true. We don't really know because there's a lot that's happening in smart cities. At the same time, you have to say that if nobody tries to go there and develop those services, we will never, ever find out. And that's what maybe the whole mobility as a service is all about. It's a bit, we're in a situation with AI, with lots of tech development that happens. And at the same time, the goals for sustainability. So there's a lot of technology that's being developed all the time. At the same time, we have tough goals, sustainability goals that are hard to reach. Now, none of these will be solved if we don't take a third component into it, and that's us humans. So that means that if there's not a user case that you can sell to consumers, you don't have much. So we end up being in a smart city bit in the situation where we just put a lot of technology there without knowing. And if you want to draw an analogy from that, it would be, a long time ago, the biggest innovation for mankind was actually creating fire. And if that was the case, we're a bit in a situation like Caesar Nero, that putting a lot of fire into the city was the smartest city on earth, which of course it isn't. The reality is and should be such that maybe it is about how we utilize all this. And that's what I'm mostly trying to speak here today about. Mobility as a service is born right here in the Nordics, and more specifically here in Finland. We're normally shy people of being proud of stuff that we've done. But yes, it is. It can be traced back to Finland. At the same time, it's on the lips of everyone within the mobility as sort of, this is how you might consider what MaaS is. It is the way that the consumers will actually consume all of the technology in smart cities, in transportation that you see at the moment. And making that easy is actually sometimes in this world of rapidly growing technology and big issues, it's not so much coming up with a lot of solutions. It's oftentimes more valuable to come up with the right questions. And what we are trying to solve, and I think we all should be trying to solve, this dilemma of how do we solve the big problems within smart city, and especially in transportation. You will not solve anything if you don't solve the problem for an individual person. And it starts with this question. And I really dare to say that this is the biggest question for the whole world's sustainability, but also for economic growth for the next decades. And that's as simple as this. And you can ask this yourself if you have a car, or if you're thinking about it, or you know someone who has a car. What would it take for you to give up your own car? And remember, don't go into the rationale. We have a lot of engineers, including myself. We try to rationalize this, but the reality is this is not a rational decision. This is not rational. The solution cannot also be rational. You have to go really to the root cause of owning a car. Now, people spend quite a lot of money into it. It's about 20% of household expenditure goes into mobility. Now, as a bit of a spike for Nokia people, telecom industry tends to talk about the ARPU, the average revenue per user. I can tell you gladly this is 10 times bigger. So the ARPU is way bigger than in the mobile or the telecom sector as such. Now, why I claim that for economic growth, this is also the biggest issue. Out of this roughly $10 trillion market, remember, 76% of that is consumed by these assets that are utilized roughly about 4% of the time. So if there's anyone out there that can tell me a bigger chance for a major sustainability, so productivity leap, please do. But I simply have not found anything as potential as this one. But remember, it all starts from you have to sell it. We can all, like I said, rationalize. And as a transport engineer, we've always known the solution. Let's just ban people of cars and I'll tell you what to do. I can really rationalize everything, put people in public transport and say who needs to go wherever. It kind of goes against a profound feeling that we have of freedom. freedom of mobility, freedom of movement, being able to go anywhere, anytime on a whim, just like that. Now, defining the problem, is it big for sustainability? So EU says itself, it's now about 25% of direct carbon emissions are caused by transport. It will be 40 by 2030. It's the only industry out there that hasn't improved on CO2 since the 90s. It's gone pretty much the same or a bit upwards. At the same time, we've done quite extensive studies out there. At the moment, 38% of people, especially in cities, they would be willing to give up their cars immediately if they could. If they could, meaning that they would have a similar service that gives them the similar level of sense of freedom, the service level that they desire. And that is, like I said, you have to take care of not 80% of trips. It's like with a mobile phone operator. Would I go to someone that says, well, I'll take care of 80 or 70% of your calls, the rest you'll have to find somewhere else? It's not good enough. You have to take every one of them. So that's roughly about 70 million cars that are today waiting to get off the roads. And that's quite substantial, isn't it? Now, what it means as a trend, as a mega trend for not just in transportation, that we are moving towards experience from ownership, not just ownership to ridership, but much more into ownership to experience. And if you think that the solution of MaaS is a trip planner, think again. I think it's less than 10% of our trips are done through a trip planner. The whole idea is to really give you the confidence, like the mobile operator, that you have everything at hand, a bit of a skeleton key to your world. Yes, of course, there needs to be the routes, there needs to be everything, but actually the point of being comparable with the car ownership is that you can get to the same decision-making process. Decision-making process of buying a car does not happen trip per trip. It happens, you go in there, you think that, okay, with this car, will I be happy for at least a year? Are all my trips to summer house, are all my trips to grandma, golfing, all of them, are they handled? So can I feel that, okay, whatever I need, I'm covered? And we have to do the same thing. And that means there's absolutely no way we can do it without all the different modes of transportation. Now, what does it take to compare with the car ownership? And the answer is simple: everything else. You need public transportation, taxis, car shares, car rentals, micromobility, bike shares, whatever you can come up to give the same level that, okay, this is enough for even that trip that I was thinking, that I'm covered for everything. And yes, car is still a major part of the value creation in all this. Now, if you think that is this something that can be done in many places, it's been overwhelming to see that actually some of the most encouraging results we've gotten from the center of Tokyo, and yes, with a scalable solution like this, combining just everything, you can actually go and the dream of freedom is quite universal. So it's not like it functions everywhere, and that's actually the trick of the car. The car itself is something, even though the cars in Tokyo will look a bit different than they do in Helsinki, but the idea of it is the same everywhere. What's really interesting in the Tokyo case is we've combined the two biggest expenses for people, namely living and mobility together, and they seem to fit perfectly. So if you want to look at the mega trends of where the world of technology, AI will need gazillions of solutions, it's how to combine this so that it's seamless for everyone. We haven't even touched the surface of that. Of course, there's another element. We need to solve this technically. We need to solve this for people, but we need to solve this also as business. And we need to solve the sustainability. How do we make these happen in the same equation? And how we solve this and how we think this can be solved is it happens. And the analogy with telecom is really intriguing. Because if I'm your mobility operator, that means I take care of all your trips. If you're willing to pay roughly the same amount you're paying for your car to me, and in order for getting that money from you, kind of a flat rate, which we tend to have for data and everything, all of us now. So I have to take care of not all your calls, but all your connections, the physical ones. So all your trips. Now, how do I make money? Let's assume that I get that 606 euros that you pay for your car, and I'll have to produce it with less. There's one thing in transportation we do know is the amount of trips. So that means every time I convert something that I calculated as a taxi or car trip and make you walk, bike, use public transportation, the average kilometer price goes down because there will be no more trips than you've done. That's good with this one. In transport, you will not be making more of these because the time is limited, how much you can do. That's actually quite good because that means that more profits, more sustainability. And it's actually quite luring. And this is how the world should be designed, so that you can merge the individual needs, the business needs, and the societal needs for all this. The cool part of technology and the concept of MaaS is that everything that the expensive parts exist. Now, this is no longer virtual world. This is the real world now we're talking. Yes, we are accessing it digitally, but people will need to still go places physically. And this is all about transportation. And if we want to do it without the car, we need quite a lot of components. Now, the good news is those bits and pieces exist. I've analyzed whether it's Santiago de Chile or Singapore, Tokyo, almost everywhere, you find enough of those pieces. All you have to do is to be able to digitally combine them, because those physical bits and pieces, they were not planned to actually fit together. It's a bit like we're building a car where actually the tire is maybe a rectangle or a triangle, and there is no wheel that fits, but we'll have to make it fit so that it looks like a beautiful car in the end. Now, some maybe early results that what kind of things happens. Is it doable? Can we actually do that? And this is something we've done here in Helsinki, and I'm actually really glad that the reality of smart city and the daring to go, like I said, nobody really knows what eventually the smart city solutions and services will look like, but we dare to at least try. And it's encouraging as a transport engineer to see that actually for our users, 62% of them use it for all travel needs. So one of the hypotheses is that can you be a mobility operator, a bit like with this one? And it appears that yes, people get it. But even more encouraging that we saw is that quite a number of people are already, even though the solutions are really early stage, and I wouldn't really call them even full-fledged MaaS at the moment, but they're still eager to start skipping their cars, either avoid buying a car or starting to even get rid of their cars. And this is, of course, extremely encouraging that with technology, combining existing components, you can actually create something new that in the minds of people brings something completely different. Now, what does this have to do with AI? I would have at least 100 questions for people how to utilize this, but I'll rather take an example, which really is something that I'm eager. It's early days, but this is the way that it will go. If the guys made it such that none of us now remember phone numbers, we don't even really remember the routes anymore because you have some whatever navigator, Google, whatever you have. The next thing that we will want to forget is how do we get there? And this is what we tried to do with WimRide, utilizing the technology, learnings, AI to actually help it. The idea is that, look, we're your mobility operator. Just like with my mobile operator, I don't go and ask them, do you connect me with fiber or satellite? I don't care. Just fix me the connection. I just want to get a service level that this functions, that there's enough megabytes. And this is what we've taken as a challenge, that can we do the same with mobility? So what you do is you give us money, flat rate, and we'll tell you, look, we'll get you there. Don't you worry. So you just say where you want to go. We'll give you the route that is within your service level. You can always upgrade if you're not happy. You can take the taxi with a bit of extra money into it. So if it doesn't fit your purpose, this is to mold actually the whole modal split wheel, like you saw over there, that we can say that, hey, okay, you don't really need to do taxi and car all the time. Let us help you. We'll promise that within 10 minutes, you're always on the way. You're never delayed more than 10 minutes if you compare it with a car. And on top of that, we make quite a lot of things. We can also make it such you go to Nuuksio now, and we will say that, okay, this time you take the train, there's a taxi waiting for you over there, or you take a bus from that end. If it's a rainy day, there will be a free taxi, because we understand that. So we take into account quite a lot of different elements into it. And of course, then we use the user preference that we learned that this person, for example, does not really like walking at all. So let's not try to put that person into it. We can pretty much see that there's this and these elements that actually are in that person's favor. So we can mold whatever we suggest and however we get the person there so that they feel convenient, they feel the individual part of this. Now coming back to the first point of being as good, even close to being as good as a car. And let's remember, it's a really beautiful product, well designed. In order to do that, there's one thing that's not rational that we love in our cars. They're individual, not a city council or someone else tells me what car I choose. I choose my car. And now this brings us to also the whole of MaaS. If we want to be as valuable as that, we need to be also extremely individual. Even though we do it for masses, and of course we have to optimize like the cars do as well. But this is the way to also make it such that we understand you. It's what you actually feel like that matters. As a last thing, I want to leave you with, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that say maybe this is in distant future, but all the Finns, all the Swedes, all the Swiss, all of us, we love to own our cars. And if you are so, you're at least as old as I am, and probably a male, because that's what I tend to get. But here's an encouraging thing for you. We got a nice rating from someone who's been using the high end of cars for quite a long time, so has to be at least at the same age as I. Tried Wim, liked it, gave us 5 stars and said, hey, this is something that should have been there before. So if 40 plus men can change, pretty sure the rest of the world can as well. That's all I wanted to say for my part. Thank you all.